Hi, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are and whenever you're watching us. My name's Sarah Needham. Today I'm here with Chris Caldwell. And I'm here to talk about the Green Vision Summit and Expo. And Chris is one of the speakers that's coming along and has kindly agreed to let us interview him beforehand to give a little bit of an insight as to what he's going to be talking about. Now, Chris has got a super interesting background. I'm going to ask him to explain a little bit more in a minute. But the thing that when I was reading about what Chris has done and what he's doing now that just kind of resonated with me and all the things that I'm trying to do is about using the expertise to drive sustainable solutions and contribute to the transition towards a greener future. Now, Chris is talking very much about energy, and I talk about energy in a different way in terms of leadership. But there's an awful lot of resonance between the types of things that we can do. But Chris, I'm going to let you tell us a little bit about yourself, please, so that our listeners can understand a bit about who you are and what you do.
Sure. Okay. Thanks very much for the opportunity to have a chat, Sarah. It's much appreciated. So my name, Chris Caldwell, as you say. I was in a previous life investment banker, and about 15 years ago decided, no, there's more to life than this. Went off, did an MBA, and left investment banking, and went and started out a small business where I wanted to build single stick wind turbines in Northern Ireland. It was a wonderful time, still terrifying time, because from being in a big organization where everything is all of your whims are looked after, you suddenly needed to find your own printer ink, and it was all a bit scary. But 14 odd years later, we're now an organization of 38 people. We've got projects dotted all around the world. We've moved from just wind into anaerobic digestion, solar, energy storage, a little bit of hydro, but wide variety of interests. The reason that we got into renewable energy in the first place, as you say, was energy. Like the energy transition seemed to be the greatest challenge and opportunity of our generation. So I thought in my time in investment banking, I spent a lot of time going through kind of developing worlds, developing economies, and helping raise capital there for infrastructure projects in China and other places. And seeing the effects of the pollution kind of pulled me towards thinking about, well, we do need a certain amount of growth to pull people out of poverty 100%. But my goodness, like the cost of the planet, the cost to the planet, and the cost of human health is something we need to get an awful lot better at. So renewable energy to me seemed like the logical path, the way forward trying to do it. I was in there well before it was cool, but managed to get a couple of turbines built. The first turbines that we built in Northern Ireland were the first investment grade turbines. There it was very much kind of cottage industry until then. There's basically no renewables until we started. Now we've broken the 50% renewable electricity barrier in Northern Ireland, so very proud of the work that we've managed to achieve there. We rewrote a lot of the planning codes. We worked very closely with the grid to try and get them to understand distributed systems. So we thought, well, we've carried out like multitude of other like little mini tasks you need to do. And we're very proud of the impact we've made there. We've taken that knowledge to other places. So I say, like we've got projects in other island nations, and now we're going to much bigger scale stuff. Primarily over the next couple of years, focused in on Scotland, Republic of Ireland, Northern Ireland, Isle of Man. But because that's where we think we can make the biggest impact. Aside from the development business, we also do quite a bit of clean tech investment, and I spend a ridiculous amount of time on kind of climate communication stuff, where I'm going to go around and talk at conferences and run a podcast called Conversations on Climate. And because not for any sort of like for profit reasons or anything like that, it's just because the messages that the people we talk to are so important that I think they should be promoted and should get out there into the real world. So I spend, like I say, and as sure many of my colleagues would agree with, and a reasonable amount of time doing that too. So it's important. So.
Yeah, I mean, that's obviously what we're doing here is trying to raise different voices and bringing it out. But so I think the vision of what you're trying to create is quite clear. But why? Why is this important to you?
Well, I think that okay. At the moment, the Western world is consuming 2.5 planets worth of stuff. So we need to take up less space, and we need to be doing things an awful lot better. It is very personal to me as a father, as someone who I believe that we should be making the world a little bit better and handing it on a little bit better to the next generation, as opposed to be, draining its resources and writing checks that ultimately they'll have to pay. I think that's deeply unfair. Now, there were generations where we didn't understand that this was happening, and that's absolutely fair enough. But now we understand. Now the veil has been pulled back. We know we're living beyond our planetary means. So there's a responsibility for all of us to be trying to focus back and try and make sure that the world is a little bit better tomorrow than it was today. And really importantly, if we're looking, so over the last kind of 50 years, like as one example, we've lost 20% of the Brazilian rainforest.
Yeah.
It's predicted that by 2050 we'll lose another 20%. Now, we could, even before that extra 20%, and as early as 2040, by some estimates, hit that tipping point where the rainforest stops from being a rainforest and turns into a dry savanna. And the implications, the climatic implications of that, like one, the ecological implications and the biodiversity implications are huge. Like 25% of the entire terrestrial biomass of the planet is in the and diversity of the planet is within the rainforest. It'd be gone, it'd be lost. But the climate implications of that is that as well. Just not even worth thinking about. Like the amount of additional carbon that would then put into the atmosphere, the extra heating that would then create, the extra kind of the knock-on tipping points of that happening, of kind of melting ice caps, rising sea levels. It's a world that none of us wants to live in. And it's something it is avoidable. We can, if we get out in front of it and we take the actions that need to be taken, we can make the changes that are required. But we just need to get out there. People need to understand it. We need to talk about it. People need to understand the urgency of it, and then we need to go and just get it done.
It's interesting you talk about this, because obviously we touched on this before we came online, as to, this can be quite a difficult subject to talk about. And you're talking about this in terms of communications. You say you've got your own podcast. You're talking about this an awful lot. So you're influencing people. You are able to have these conversations where it's quite a dim picture, but there are opportunities, like you say. Mm-hmm. So what does it mean to kind of be a leader in this world where you're shuffling between these two paradoxes, between, there's devastation that is just around the corner. We're hitting lots of tipping points, but at the same time, there is room for optimism.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I like to use the word optimism because it kind of obviously reminds of Cristina Figueres and the wonderful work that she did. She was one of actually probably the leading voice at the Paris COP, and the leading. The single greatest reason that we ended up having a consensus at Paris was the wonderful work that Christina did, and from Paris then got us to net zero commitments, that got us to not governmental net zero commitments, to net zero commitments across lots of different like major industries. The whole idea of net zero came from the work of this remarkable human being, and her kind of thesis on this is that we need both. We need both outrage and optimism, and it's a very sensible way of looking at it. We need to be positive because there are positive messages to give. Yeah. One of them is we know how to do this. The technology is there. All we need to do is just get on with it. It's figure out like how we're going to finance it, and just work to get to. We do need a kind of a wartime type footing where we're thinking of we're challenging the resources of the world towards solving this problem. Yeah. But if we did make those movements in this direction, it is all solvable. There's nothing that we need to be inventing to make this work. We can do it. But the only way of getting that level of optimism into action is by the outrage side, is by understanding that, well, unless we do this, like, and we are outraged at the the powers that the individuals who are standing in the way of this, and we argue past them, we push past them, and we get past them. So to get to the point where we're deploying technology, we're deploying capital to be making the world better tomorrow, and leaving the ideals and the interests that promote the type of overconsumption and promote the type of over pollution that we have been doing. We get them to one side, but the only way of getting them to one side is through outrage.
And also through dialogue, I guess, because it's this finding imperfect solutions in an imperfect world. We would love to be able to create something that's perfect and have everyone behind us and know that we're all going in the same direction. And we still need to manage between these kind of political and financial challenges, I guess, that we all see on a day-to-day basis to be able to drive the right technologies forward to be able to create these solutions.
We do, but we also need to be very careful about the technologies that we are implementing, and we're moving what space we're moving into to try and help us solve. Because there is humans have always been looking for a savior, for someone that'll come out and wave a magic wand and solve all the problems. And right now, there's an awful lot of thought about the techno fix. That don't worry, technology will come along and save us all. A lot of technologies that we're seeing right now are just going to nudge us down the wrong path. They're particularly kind of in the space of artificial intelligence, where you have large models that look at the past to try and predict what tomorrow will look like. Well, if you have a look back at the last 100 years, I'm not sure that we want to be making a model on the basis of our track records on climate and making the world a better place based on what we've done for the last 100 years. In fact, we kind of want to say, well, you know what we just did? Let's do the opposite. But that's not the way that these artificial intelligence learning models work. They take data and they extrapolate from that as to what's the most likely positive outcome that comes from that. But that's not the way the world's. That's not the way we want to be programming the world looking forward. We don't need a technofix. We have good solar panels. We have good wind turbines. We have good hydro plants. We have reasonable storage. It could get better, but if we do pump storage where we can do pump storage, if we can do geothermal where we can do geothermal, there's plenty of solutions that we can do that aren't just trying to find trying to fuse the atom, because again, that's been like nuclear fission has been something we've been trying to do, and it's been 10 years away for at least the last 50 years, and it's still 10 years away. So I don't know. Yeah, let's just focus and do what we're doing.
Yeah, I mean, you're going on to the human element, obviously, of trying to ensure that we're engaging everybody in the challenges that we've got. And you and I think, both completely agree that technology is not going to solve it. It's a massive enabler if we can get it right. But also has the potential, as you say, to drive us in the wrong direction. So it kind of leads us nicely into this question as to, what is that one change that you think, if we could literally just flip the switch on that would help with this knock-on effect that you're talking about? What's that one change you think it is?
Oh, if I had a legislative magic wand, of course, if I had a magic wand, it'd be like world peace or something like that, But this isn't this world, But if I had kind of one piece of legislation that I could write for the planet, it would be to somehow to make us pay for externalities, and in this particular conversation, it would be a pollution tax. So the most kind of common way of thinking about it is it's a carbon charge, a carbon credit, something like that, where you need to be paying for the amount of carbon that you're emitting at every stage of the chain, and then that tax can then be taken up and put into decarbonization efforts. And it would be, it's in terms of a kind of an equalization mechanism of redistribution of wealth and trying to make the world a fairer place. That would be wonderful. It would be absolutely wonderful. If you take this pot of carbon taxation, it should be called a pollution tax, not a tax to my mind, a pollution charge rather than a tax. But let's say you take this pollution charge and you then have this capital then reinvested into the developing world's infrastructures, so that the developing world can then be growing in a green, sustainable way. That would be magnificent. We could the world would be a better place.
Yeah, totally. You're talking about putting investment back into the spaces that currently are impacted by the results of what we're doing with the over generation of everything that we are producing, everything that we're consuming in our part of the world. And yeah, obviously that's a massive impact on other people. So it's almost like this in Germany, Ausgleich. I'm struggling to think in English. Equalization, and actually enabling others to create impact in their local ecosystems, I guess. So what is the change politically that we need to, because we've obviously got, all these different COP, we've got other things all happening. So what's missing out of that process that's going to enable these kind of changes to come forward, do you think?
Oof.
Sorry.
you bring up COP. Right. COP. Okay. Just we'll always have Paris, as they say, as the saying goes.
Yeah.
Paris was wonderful. But before that, we had Copenhagen. And since then, we've had a whole series of non-events, really. And next year will also, in all likelihood, be a non-event. But one thing Paris did was it established the principle of no more than 2 degrees. We strive for 1.5. Do all we can do to strive for 1.5, and everybody signed up to that. So, and honestly, we don't need any more commitments than that. As long as people align to that interest and say no more than 1. What if we're trying to keep it to 1.5 degrees? Well, that means we need to be transitioning away from fossil fuels, and quickly. That means we need to be transitioning to renewable energy, and quickly. That means there's a huge amount of stuff that is impossible without that is impossible if this is the unified goal. The problem with COP, though, is that it then becomes it's expanded. It has been sponsored by Egypt was sponsored by Coca-Cola. Lead sponsor was Coca-Cola. That's ridiculous. Like, the world's greatest user of petrochemicals in the world, Coca-Cola, like in its bottles and transportation, whatever else, is the lead sponsor of COP. Then you had last year's COP, with the head of the ADNOC as the CEO of COP, and not standing back from his day job as being the leader of a fossil fuel of a national fossil fuel company. And then next year, Baku, again, it's another kind of fossil fuel driven state. So we're not seeing tremendous amounts of progress. And the only reason we had progress last year was because of a few very, very brave people and a few very, very strong people who stood up and made all the right noises at the right time. So one of the big things was President Mary Robinson. I don't know if you saw that She Changes Climate talk, where she just took the brunt. Like she was a female, which clearly is not was made for the conversation a little bit difficult for Dr. Sultan, but he reacted very poorly to taking tough questions from someone who he was really quite disrespectful to, and his reaction was so extreme it provoked a big outrage, which was wonderful. We needed that outrage. Then we had the leaked letters from OPEC saying that this is a crisis, an existential crisis to us. As oil producing nations, we need to push back. We need to stop action, and that was brave. I have no idea who leaked that, but whoever leaked it was an extraordinarily brave human being, because that again created an awful lot of backlash, and it forced countries to take a side. And it was in that forcing countries to take a side we did get the wording. Whether it's phasing out, phasing down, transitioning away, doesn't matter. It all means the same thing. It means finally in a COP we've got the words written down that fossil fuels are yesterday, and tomorrow we need to move to something else. But the one thing that the COP process does show is that it is no longer the place for the innovation that we need it to be. So things like the Green Vision Summit Expo, can and should be stepping into that type of reach. We need this type of conference that's independent of the COPs, that's independent of those special interests, to convene, to have kind of world leaders, have business leaders, have political leaders, have past and present world leaders, CEOs, thought leaders, to get together, convene, and share ideas, and try and figure out, because it's now kind of moved beyond. Assuming we have Paris and we have that as the commitment for the world, then it's down to the rest of us, who aren't necessarily in that kind of small inner circle, to then go and make it happen. So we need to be convening. We need to be sitting around. We need to be talking. We need to be sharing ideas. We all need to be getting on the same page, and having like these types of kind of summits and expos is all part of that message.
I totally agree with everything that you've said, in the fact that we quite often as humans, it comes back to something you said earlier, we kind of wait for somebody else to come in and give us the answer, or we wait for someone else to come in with this magic solution and wave their wand. And actually it takes all of us getting involved and taking action. And we've shown, I think, as you've rightly said in the last few years, that these big summits are not necessarily the places where action is going to happen. It's got to come up through the independent actions of a lot of us working together. And so definitely everything that you're saying in terms of, we're creating Green Vision and Summit Expo to go and collaborate, to take action. And it fundamentally, we want it to be different. We want to have these challenging conversations on stage live, where people can get involved, feel a bit uncomfortable, but recognize actually we've got to be uncomfortable to be able to create change. That's what we know of human beings. So this space and what we're generating, and some of the, like you say, the outrage that's coming at the minute, is actually good, because we're not going to create it from a space of safety and security and everything else. We've got to take action in the face of everything else that's going on around us. So let's go into what your intention is with getting involved in the summit. What's the role you want to play? Why is it important to you? You've spoken about it a bit already, but just maybe go into it from this kind of specifically for this event.
Yeah. No, I believe that we all have a responsibility to be trying to get, if we firmly believe that this is the challenge of our times, and I do firmly believe the challenge of our times, it's our responsibility going out and trying to raise awareness, and trying to share ideas, trying to convene really significant groupings of people together, from all parts of society, all parts of business, all parts of politics, media, trying to get everybody into a room, and trying to share. It's this particular some an expo. It's geographically, it's very interesting. Kind of Malta is it's the potential to be a bridge between Europe and Africa, Middle East is huge. The ambition of the summits is significant. The potential of the country itself to be a base for the energy transition is material in itself too. Yes, there's a responsibility to go out and try and do this. And when I was invited to come and have a chat, I thought, oh, this is great. And I very much admire the bravery of putting something of this scale together, and I also admire the bravery of not being afraid to ask the difficult questions. So, like, taking on ideas that I'll just give kind of two little examples. Kind of one is one of the things we're going to be talking about is carbon capture and storage, and another is hydrogen, and they're both deeply problematic. They both have potential. They can both be very positive, but they can also be extremely negative. And the idea that we can be be taking on these and look at them from both sides, not just being a marketing exercise and saying no, this is the solution, this is the Holy Grail. So no, where you challenge, and we challenge each other, and that's very rare. In most cases, most conferences that I've been at, you get kind of representatives going up and they're unchallenged, and they just give the marketing pitch. And that's what I really appreciate here is it isn't a marketing pitch. It is a cold hard look at the facts on the ground, and what the right solution is in this particular circumstance. And I think that's something it's really important today.
Yeah, I mean, I always think of it, and I definitely think of Green Vision as this space to kind of co-create and collaborate, to hear different voices, and also be challenged by different people. Because I think in some ways we've gone certainly in Europe, we've gone a bit too far we talk about innovation a lot, And yet we kind of forget that innovation comes from having disparate voices and actually bring them together and actually working through this. And effectively, that's what we want to try and do, obviously live on stage, but we want to encourage this within the whole concept of the expo and summit, because a bit like you're saying, we know we can't change the world by each of us kind of basically just amplifying and reiterating everything we're saying without actually listening and trying to understand different perspectives. So that for us is a major part of it. And I know you're going to be leading on the energy piece, and that's great, because I think it does take someone with this kind of level of insight into it to lead these discussions through. But tell us about a couple of the points you've talked about. Hydrogen, you've talked about carbon capture, but what are the kind of things that you're hoping to bring out, like the overall kind of view?
Okay, the overall message, and just make it really, really simple, is that we have got, and I kind of alluded to it earlier on, said we're there already. Like we don't need, all we need to do is get the political will. We need people to be going out, talking to their politicians, going into their offices, into their jobs, and having these conversations and saying, listen, this is important to us. So we have a responsibility to be doing this. Now, you as my employer, or you take a position as a consumer. You can go, you vote with your euro, you vote with your pound to try and align the businesses that are to your own views and your own purposes, because we don't need to be doing an awful lot more than deploying the technologies that we already have. If we can do that, we can do that quickly, and we do that at scale, we can solve all of these problems. Like that's the most kind of just this simple messaging. Of course, it's an awful lot more complicated than that. But if you're just trying to boil it down to one simple message, please use your voice as a consumer. Use your voice as a voter. Use your voice as an employee. Use your voice as a boss. Use your voice as an influencer. Use your voice as a friend to move other people along the path of saying, we need to make tomorrow better. We need to have the world a sustainable place for our kids, for our grandkids. Like children born today in Western Europe will live until well into their 80s. To give them a life and a future, we need to be solving our problem. Like by 2050 is too late. We need to be working on it now. Yeah.
I couldn't agree with you more. I've obviously got two daughters as well, and the thought that they're not going to be able to enjoy the world that we've been able to enjoy our lifestyle feels like, how can we even think to do that to them based on whatever's going to go on to even the next generations after that. And I love what you're saying about helping everybody use their voice in whichever way that comes out, based on whatever the discussions that we're going to be having at the summit. So what are the ways that you use, and you do this a lot, and you say you've got a podcast, you're doing a lot on communications. What are the ways you're trying to engage people? Because yes, they need to take a stand, but how do they know how to do that?
Oh, well, yeah, I'm not sure. So people do have lots of different levers they can pull within their own lives, and that is going out and talking to the people within their circles. So as I say, like be it the politicians, be it their bosses, be it their families, whatever, you could try and get them to go out and make those choices. So if you're aware of it, if this is stuff that you care about, like you can be, okay, my daughter is a massive influence on me. She she is 15, and she took the decision when she 3 years ago to become a vegetarian. Because she cared passionately about climate and about animals, and she's now full on vegan, and she has made her entire class. Well, not her entire class, but let's say 2/3 of her class. She's a very powerful young lady. So two-thirds of her class, she's influenced them in such a way to be dramatically reducing their meat intake, which is but it is the single greatest thing that a human can do to be reducing their climate impact, is to eat less meat and eat more vegetables. That's a really simple thing we can all be doing. Instead of having like 2 meals a day with meat, have it once or twice a week. It would make a massive difference, like a massive difference. And I could talk for an awful long time about how we are treating our farmers and our rural communities appallingly, because we really are. But we need to be reinvesting and making their lives an awful lot better, because we're appallingly mistreating our rural communities, sadly.
Well, say thank you to your daughter from us all.
Okay.
And also, I think it's a great example. It's a great example to finish on, because we can all make an impact. And obviously that's the massive kind of note, if you want, that we're trying to thread through the whole of the Green Vision, is it's not just about each of us who are working in this space. And it's actually, we can all take a stand in the work that we're doing in our lives, in the rest of our lives. But I'm super excited to meet you in person when we get there. Just a month and a half now.
It's very
And
soon,
also
yeah.
to be part of those conversations, that collaboration, to figure out how we can all help each other. So is there anything you would like to say, Chris, as we close this? To encourage
Just one final thought. And it's kind of inspired by the thought about my daughter Belle. We will all have to look our kids and younger people in the eye at some point and answer the question of, what did you do? And I think we all want to kind of put our hands on our heart and say, yeah, we did our best. We did. We tried. We did all that we could to make this life possible, or to try and avoid the disaster that you're seeing right now. But hopefully it'll be to make the world a better place. So.
Yeah, amazing. Yes, we can all create a legacy, and we can all create that future together. So come along and join us at Green Vision. It's from the 29th of April to the 2nd of May, I think it is. I always get the final day wrong, so apologies. But yeah, looking forward to seeing you there, Chris. And thank you very much for taking the time to have a chat with me today.
Thanks very much, Sarah. Real pleasure.
Take care of yourself.
Thank
Bye
you.
for now.
Cheers. Bye.